Hey everyone, this week's countdown is sponsored by War Robots, available now on iOS and Android devices. It's a tactical 6-on-6 multiplayer game of dominance that requires not only the biggest guns, but also plenty of strategy. But also guns. Choose from tons of robots, all with different strengths and weaknesses that you can modify to your heart's content. Now, having played this game myself, I can tell you it looks good, it plays well, and it's a lot of fun. They're always adding new robots and maps to the game so it doesn't get boring. Join me and more than 70 million others by downloading War Robots now. Use the link in the description and get a huge starter pack of the Leo robot, 1 Kang weapon, 3 Molot weapons, 100 gold, and 400,000 silver. Thanks for watching everyone, and now, on to the video. Though it's seen better days than it has lately, the WWE United States Championship still carries with it a deep, rich history in professional wrestling. Debuting in the Mid-Atlantic territory in 1975, the U.S. title has carried a similar reputation to that of its counterpart, the Intercontinental title, a championship reserved for some of the toughest, most dependable workers to lace up a pair of boots, a title that at one time commanded a similar respect to that of the NWA World title. The championship helped define the legacies of guys like Ric Flair, Wahoo McDaniel, Magnum TA, Sting, and many more. And while the guys I just mentioned went on to hold the belt multiple times, it's time to look at some of the 53 men who held the belt only once. This week, I'm going to rank them the top 8 one-time US champions of all time. Just a reminder, this is not based on overall career accomplishments, otherwise this would be a very different list. I'm just going to rank individual title reigns based on what was going on at that time period. So, here we go. Number 8. Harley Race. Harley Race, already a former NWA World Champion, famously became the very first US champ after beating Johnny Weaver in a tournament final back on New Year's Day in 1975 and held that title for more than 180 days. Unfortunately, that's the only information that seems to be out there about Race as US champion. Unlike everyone else in this list, finding show results during the time he was the champion is oddly difficult. I've been unable to find any details about who he actually beat while champion. Now, I would never allege this tournament never happened. Hell, they don't even tell you who Pat Patterson beat in Rio de Janeiro to become the first Intercontinental Champion, so I'm guessing the one Harley Race took part in was legit. Despite a lack of details, we at least know that Race was the first champion. Him being a once and future world champion provided some serious legitimacy to this new title, so thanks in large part to the historical nature of his reign, I think he does belong on the list. Number 7. Daniel Bryan. As one of the only modern champions on this list, Daniel Bryan's run with the US title is really symbolic of his entire WWE career up until now. Throughout his entire run as part of the original NXT in 2010, Bryan was portrayed as a big underdog. That perception intensified among fans when he was released after the debut of the Nexus for reasons some would call dubious. Part of his on-camera struggle for recognition was fueled by his rivalry with The Miz, his mentor in NXT and the US champion. The two reignited their feud later in the year after Daniel returned to the company at SummerSlam, reaching its climax at Night of Champions when Bryan finally bested Miz to become the new champion. Bryan would hold the title for more than 170 days, holding back The Miz, John Morrison, Ted DiBiase, and more, and even beat IC champ Dolph Ziggler in a fantastic match at Bragging Rights, finally losing the belt to Sheamus just before WrestleMania 27. From his debut all the way up until his in-ring return earlier this year, Daniel has always defied the odds, and that was exemplified with his first title in WWE. Number 6. Jimmy Snuka. Controversy in his later years aside, Snuka was unquestionably a huge star of the 70s and 80s, and a neat little piece of trivia, he was the first foreign heel to become US champion. In September of 1979, Snuka, by this point a freshly turned baddie who had aligned himself with manager Buddy Rogers, won the vacant US Championship by beating Ricky Steamboat in the finals of a tournament. Over the next several months, Snuka would wage war with Steamboat in title versus title bouts all over the Mid-Atlantic and battle Ric Flair for the title multiple times. The fact that Snuka was a heel and Flair a babyface at the time makes this an interesting chapter in both their careers. Snuka was far more brutal under the tutelage of the original Nature Boy, even going so far as to take Mr. Wrestling Tim Woods out with a kayfabe neck injury early in his title run, which would eventually lead to a brutal rivalry between the two. Snuka's lone reign with the title finally ended in April of 1980 at the hands of Ric Flair. Number 5. Cesaro. Ah yes, one of the many times we thought Cesaro was going to finally get that main event push after all. Antonio Cesaro won his first and only US title after beating Santino Marella, another one-time champ, at SummerSlam 2012. For the next 240 days, he added a level of legitimacy to the title that honestly wasn't there with Santino. Defending against The Miz, Kofi Kingston, Wade Barrett, and R-Truth, among others, Cesaro helped elevate the title in a big way. By simply being there and putting on great matches, it let everyone know that the US title was something worth fighting for. Cesaro would eventually lose the belt to Kingston in April of 2013. Number 4. Dick Slater. Quite possibly one of the more underrated wrestlers on this countdown, Dick Slater's 4-month run as US champion was seen as a big deal for the time. As the reigning Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Champion, Slater beat Greg Valentine for the US title in December of 1983, becoming a dual champion before awarding the Mid-Atlantic belt to Ivan Koloff. For the next 4 months, Slater fought with Valentine, Wahoo McDaniel, and most notably, the NWA World Champion Ric Flair. This angle involved Slater stealing the 10 pounds of gold, even making his own version of the belt, claiming himself to be the real world's champion. That wording sounds awfully familiar. Slater's 129-day run as US champion ended in April of 1984, when Ricky Steamboat, who recently returned to action after being retired by Sergeant Slaughter that January, defeated him in the Greensboro Coliseum, marking the Dragon's 3rd reign with the title. Just goes to show you, retirement in wrestling has always been a rib. Number 3. Barry Windham. A title reign that's closely linked to the Four Horsemen's reign of dominance in the 1980s, Barry Windham's run as US champion was one of the all-time greats. By April of 1988, the US title was vacant after Dusty Rhodes was suspended for inadvertently striking Jim Crockett. At the same time, Windham shocked the world by turning heel on his partner Lex Luger and joining the Four Horsemen. Donning a single black glove and utilizing his father's claw hold finisher, Windham won the vacant US title by defeating Nikita Koloff in the finals of a tournament. Man, if researching this video has taught me anything, it's that the US title has been won in a lot of tournaments over the years. As champion, Windham went on a tear throughout Jim Crockett Promotions for the remainder of '88. While helping the rest of the Horsemen in their endeavors, Windham was able to defend the title against guys like Rhodes, Luger, Brad Armstrong, Dick Murdoch, Sting, and Bam Bam Bigelow, utilizing his deadly claw hold. Finally, at the Chi-Town Rumble in early 1989, his old partner Lex Luger exacted revenge by pinning Windham to become the US champ for the 2nd time in his career. For the length of his run and for taking on some of the most legit contenders of his day, Barry Windham went a long way in helping build the reputation of one of the most popular stables in wrestling history and the US Championship. Number 2. Nikita Koloff. Debuting for JCP in 1984 with practically no experience, Koloff learned everything on the job and soon made his way up to main event status, fighting Ric Flair for the world title in the summer of 1985. By '86, the Russian Bear was involved in a bitter feud with Magnum TA, who had recently been stripped of the US title. A best-of-7 series for the championship took place during that year's Great American Bash Tour, culminating with Koloff winning the title in Match 7. Just 2 months later, Koloff would beat Wahoo McDaniel for the NWA National Heavyweight title, unifying the two belts. Even more so than Jimmy Snuka, Koloff's time with the title was a great example of that archetypal, dastardly foreign heel besmirching the good name of America by being its champion. It's been done a whole lot ever since then to varying degrees of success, but as much as it worked here, it was not meant to last. In October of '86, Magnum TA suffered a career-ending car crash, derailing future plans for him and Booker Dusty Rhodes. Meanwhile, in the real world, public opinion on Russia was changing for the better, which created a unique opportunity. Soon, Koloff would join forces with the Dream to take on the Four Horsemen, resulting in one of the most successful babyface turns in wrestling history. Koloff would hold the championship for 328 days, the 3rd longest single reign of all time and 10th longest overall, before losing it to Horseman member Lex Luger in July of '87. Nikita's reign was a rare example of a heel champion transitioning to a face champion smoothly and successfully, and it's one of the rare times we'll ever see a politically charged gimmick actually evolving with the times instead of digging its heels in the past. Before I give my number 1 pick, here are a few honorable mentions. Bobo Brazil. Known for helping to break down racial barriers in pro wrestling, Bobo Brazil made history in 1977 when he beat Blackjack Mulligan to become the first ever black US champion, one of only 8 all time. Though he only held the belt for about 3 weeks before losing it to Ric Flair, the historical significance of his victory is worth noting. Dean Ambrose. At first glance, you would think that Dean obviously has a place on the main countdown. After all, at the height of the Shield's first run, he held the title for 351 days, the longest reign under the WWE banner and the 2nd longest all time. Unfortunately, the length of the reign was the only impressive thing about it, as he barely defended the title before losing it to Sheamus in a battle royal on Raw in 2014. Seth Rollins. Another former Shield member, then WWE Champion Rollins, made history in 2015 when he beat John Cena at SummerSlam to win the US title, making him the first man to ever hold both belts. Though his reign ended less than a month after his win, it's still a feather in the cap for the man who had an insane 2015. And the number one-time United States champion of all time is Rick Rude. You probably saw Mr. Rude on my list of best one-time Intercontinental champions, but his one run as the US champion was even more impressive. As a member of the Dangerous Alliance, the Ravishing One beat an injured Sting at Clash of the Champions 17 in November of 1991 to become the new champion. From there, he'd hold the title for a whopping 378 days, the all-time longest single reign for the belt. After a lengthy feud with Sting over the title, he went on to fight guys like Ricky Steamboat and Nikita Koloff. He even waged war with Sting and Ron Simmons over the WCW title several times, though would be unsuccessful at winning it for the time being. Unfortunately, Rude's historic reign would be cut off before its time, as a neck injury forced him to relinquish the championship at the end of 1992. As one of WCW's top heels, and at one point the crown jewel of the company's biggest heel organization, Rick Rude gained a ton of notoriety while US champion, elevating the title to a status that hadn't been seen since the 1980s, making it as much of a main event title as the World Championship. Combine the level of prestige he added to the belt with the record-setting length for which he held it, and it's easy to see why Rick Rude is the best one-time US champion of all time. So who do you think belongs in this list? Let me know in the comments section below. Be sure to thumbs up this video if you like it, subscribe to Wrestling with Regret, and buy the t-shirts at ProWrestlingTees.com. I'm Bryan Zane, and I'll see you next time.